Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Payton on the Radio podcast. As we got episode 2, and I'm joined by another special guest and my main man, Pearlo Wisdom, as he's joined us for the Eastern Conference preview. As we're going to be talking about our predictions and breakout players, just like we did in the last week's episode. Just this week, we're going to be talking about the Eastern Conference. And welcome in, Pearlo. And how's it going, my man?
It's going good, my friend. Just getting ready for NHL season and big day tomorrow, and
Yeah.
excited to get back in the saddle, man. Forget about the outside world now.
Yeah.
It's all over.
Yeah, so this episode will be going up after the Preds and San Jose Sharks game, so I hope you guys enjoyed the play-by-play action from me. I think you're going to be joining me tomorrow for that as well, I think.
We'll see what my schedule's like, but I'm gonna try to. Yeah.
Yeah, it should be a great game. It should be very exciting. So we're going to be talking about our Eastern Conference preview. But before we kind of jump into that, we're going to be talking about some hockey news around the world. We're going to be talking about the two signings that just happened in both Matthew Barzell getting locked up on a huge contract. Is it really
hmm
worth it for Matthew Barzell? I think it is, but I mean, the problem is he's been playing on a very defensive team where he doesn't have anybody to pass to. And we're also going to be talking about Jason Robertson getting a contract, and the Stars being a little bit angry at the guy. So let's just jump into the very first thing is Matthew Barzell, who just got locked up on a big 8-year deal worth $9.15 million. I honestly thought Matthew Barzell was going to go off to some other team, quite honestly. I didn't think the Islanders were ever going to sign him to this type of deal. Now, I definitely think this is worth it. A lot of people were talking about how he hasn't been point per game since his rookie season, but people tend to forget that Barry Trotz wasn't around at that time when Barzell ripped that 85 point season. And ever since then, he's been playing with Trotz, playing a more defensive kind of style. And also, his wingers are Parise, and he doesn't play with the best wingers in the world that score enough goals to be able to get him that point per game. What do you think about the deal?
Well, I mean, absolutely. Like, to tell you the honest truth, if I was him, I would be like, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
But that not because people say, well, Trotz plays a defensive system. What else was Trotz going to do with that lineup?
Oh, there's
That
nothing really
lineup
else.
should never have been as good as it was. You can thank Trotz for that, and because offensively he hasn't had anybody to play with for a very long time, and he's made some players look a lot better than they are for a while now.
Hmm.
So yeah, do I think he deserves $9 million a year? Absolutely. He would be a point a game player in just about any organization out there. And he's one of the best two-way centers in the league. So without a doubt,
Yeah,
$9
his
million.
his expected offense is off the charts. Like those expected offensive numbers look like you could definitely be a point per game type of player. It's just he's playing with wingers that really don't help out Barzell at all. You got Parise, your best goal scoring wingers. What used to be Everly, but now it's Andres Lee and nobody really else. Like there was nobody else that really scored
Oh,
20 goals above 20 goals this past season for the Islanders, but for Brock Nelson and Andres Lee. So it's kind of hard to give Barzell a really good winger to help Barzell get to that point per game type of totals. So I gotta say, man, Lou loves the team that he has. This roster has been practically the exact same over the past few years. You would expect to see maybe some changes with this team, but man, is it ever identical? We're going to be talking about the Islanders a little bit later on when we place them in the Metro, but there's some big questions heading into this upcoming season, and I'm not a big fan of the Islanders, and I don't really believe that they'll make the playoffs. But we'll jump towards the other team, and that's the Dallas Stars, who just locked up Jason Robertson to a big 4-year deal worth $7.75 million. Now, from reports, the Dallas Stars were kind of ticked off with the negotiations with Jason Robertson because all of a sudden Jason Robertson kicked it up and he wanted to get a deal done. But honestly, from the way that I look at it, is Robertson probably wanted, I mean, you talked before the show, that he wanted a big long-term deal. Pure and
mhm.
simple, he wanted a long-term deal, probably upwards in the same as Matthew Barzell, 9-10 million most likely, and he's definitely worth it. The guy's been a point per game player on a team that really has nothing else but Robertson and Rope Hansen Pavelski. So I think you definitely should lock up this guy. I think that's well worth it for Robertson and for the organization to get pissed off at him. they shouldn't be. You know, the player wants to get paid. He wants to get paid that money that he might not be able to get paid later on down the road. So, what's your thoughts? I know me and you both don't like the owner for the Dallas Stars because he said that one thing where he thinks that he should be locking up veterans and paying the veterans more money than the youngsters.
Yeah, and that's just it in a nutshell right there. This is ridiculous. Like, this is 2023 now. 2000, it's get with the times, dude. Grow up. Like, seriously. You want to keep on trying to bang that drum? Then watch Dallas Stars go into the crapper every single year for the next however long. If you don't get your head out of your butt, how many times have we seen it with these old school owners or you know, teams that have ignored analytics? Where are they now?
Daryl
They're,
Cates, this is the biggest example.
yeah, until they change their ways and start looking at the world in a progressive way, their teams suck. And I think Dallas misses the playoffs this year. If they end
Oh
up
yeah.
having to trade Robertson out of this deal, forget about it. Forget about it. I hope your fan base goes and
Well,
runs and hides, my friend.
I think 4 years is not terrible, but at the exact same time, 4 years has taken him until he's in his prime.
Yeah.
27. And you know the best statistical seasons for players are around that age, like around from
Mhm.
20 about 24 to about 28, 29 are the best statistical seasons for a lot of players. And most likely you're going to have to pay Robertson more money than what you were going to have to pay to lock him up now. Like I just
Yeah.
don't understand why teams are more reluctant on locking up players and just paying them the big bucks when most likely it is worth it and you're just going to do it later on down the road, but now you're going to have to pay them more money. And that's the biggest thing because with the cap going up, you probably could have locked up Robertson on a decent amount. Now, the problem was for the Dallas Stars, they were tied up against the cap. They didn't have a whole lot of room. They only have about 85 grand left. But I mean, if they weren't dumb and signed Tyler Seguin and Jamie Benn to the big ass contracts that they signed them to, they would have been in a lot of a better position. But it is what it is.
Yeah, and that's the thing is they really don't have they have lined themselves up, but they might not have a choice but to unbelievably trade Robertson, which is just disgusting. Like
Hmm.
you don't trade guys like that. He has nothing left to prove. All your veterans that you're all so high about, he's destroying them. Destroying them. He has nothing to prove. Nothing more to prove.
No, nothing more to prove. He's one of the best forwards on the Dallas Stars without a doubt. They should be really focusing on keeping the guy long term and building their new team around both Robertson and Rope Hintz because those are the two guys that you definitely want to keep building around because those two guys, they are absolute studs. So, let's jump into the next thing and our predictions and the preview of the Eastern Conference because we're about to start up in the regular season. Regular season starts tomorrow, kind of. It doesn't really officially start until October 11th, but we're about to get right into it. So let's jump into talking about the Atlantic Division, and we're gonna go in alphabetical order like we did in the last episode, and we're gonna talk about the Boston Bruins right off the get go. But before we do jump into that, I like to just say if you guys are all new to the channel, forgot to say this. Make sure to hit that like button and hit the subscribe button, and make sure to go check out my man Pearlo. All his links will be down in the description below. His Twitter, YouTube, all that. And it's here soon. I'm going to be uploading these podcasts on Spotify, iTunes, all that cool stuff. So if you guys want to listen to them audio-wise on your way to work, I'll definitely be getting them up here very, very soon. In the next few weeks, we're going to be having all these episodes live on all those streaming platforms as well, which I'm pretty excited about as well. So let's jump into the Boston Bruins and talk about their team this year, which I have a lot of worry about the Boston Bruins this year. I think there's a lot of worry of, is David Krejci going to play very good? We all know Patrice Bergeron's going to do good, but the fact that they have Marchand and McAvoy out for the next, like, what, 4 months still, if I'm correct?
Oh, I've heard that Marchand says he's going to come back in November.
Oh,
So,
well, if you get those
yeah.
guys soon, I mean, that's huge. But I think there's a lot of concern about their defensive core this upcoming season. I feel like the Boston Bruins might actually slip out of the playoffs this upcoming season. There's kind of a lot of worry. I have another team that I'm kind of feeling, I feel like they might take a step over the Boston Bruins this upcoming season. But for me, I think the Boston Bruins are going to place fifth. I think this team has a lot of questions about them. Their defensive core, Carlo didn't have a great season last year. Lindholm is going to be good, but without McAvoy in that core and Grizzlick as well, it's not the most beautiful looking defensive core. And what do you think about the team?
Um, it's the thing is, it's Boston. They just seem to get it
Hmm.
done most of the time, and that's why it's
That's
really
my
hard to put
problem.
them out. It's put them out of a playoff spot. But I mean, AJ Greer looks like he's going to make this
Yeah.
lineup.
Yeah.
Now that guy can't skate at all.
Nope.
Like if he's making your lineup, this isn't a good thing. Krejci and Pasternak are going to be a great combination. I think Pasternak's going to have a fantastic year, regardless of how well
Yeah.
Boston does this year. But it's like two sides of my brain. Like this is the Boston Bruins; they always get it done. Then you open your eyes and you look at their lineup and go, they're not making the playoffs. Against teams that this is going to be a tighter year than it has been in the past, with all these teams getting a lot of teams in the East getting better. I think they're going to be hard pressed. At the very least, it's a bubble team.
Yeah. And that's what I think so too. Like it's a very much of a bubble team between these two guys. They're very much bubble. So where do you see the Bruins being placed in the standings?
Um, Man, I mean, let's set it this way. If Swayman goes down or something like that, this could be diabolically bad for
Oh
them.
yeah.
Um, in just lineup alone, I think they could be six.
Six?
I could even see six. I could even see six. Yeah. Yeah. They got Nick Foligno playing on the top line right now. Come on. Like,
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, he was at one time, but
No, he
now
just plays
that
defense.
guy
He
is
can't he
50.
can't generate any offense, that guy. So you're playing him up on the top
He
line.
should
You're
be.
not going to be scoring very much goals to begin the season, especially with Taylor Hall to begin the season out of the lineup as well. It's just looking
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
very injury riddled season for the Bruins. And yeah, you could totally see him in that. I mean, you could see him almost anywhere, the fourth, fifth, or sixth type of spot, just because of how their lineup is this season, and also how, the Buffalo Sabres, Red Wings, and the Sens are looking like this upcoming season. So we'll move on to the
Yeah.
next one, and we'll talk about the Buffalo Sabres, who, as
Mm.
well, they are looking really, really good this upcoming season. There's a lot of things to like with them picking up Eric Comrie. Who knows what he'll be this upcoming season? Their defense core with Samuelson, Darlene, Power, Labushkin, who they picked up. Their offensive core is looking like it could be really good. It looks like maybe even JJ Patrica might be in the lineup this upcoming season. Jack Quinn might have a full season this upcoming year. So there's a lot of their younger players might be able to take a step into the team. Now, with that, I don't believe the Buffalo Sabres will be able to make it in the playoffs. But the thing is, you might have a lot of breakout candidates for this team as well, which I think Dylan Cousins is going to have a breakout season this year. I think he's just going to have a massive season, as well as Payton Krebs. I've always been a big fan of Payton Krebs as well. I thought, sooner or later this kid is going to be a huge breakout star. So for me, I think I'm going to place the Buffalo Sabres at seventh. I still see them doing very, very well. But with the other teams, Boston, Sens, I just see them being far ahead of the Buffalo Sabres. But if Eric Comrie can have an insane season, I could even see the Buffalo Sabres place a little bit higher than most teams.
See, now I think this team on paper is better than Boston's right now. Um, I really love this defense. It is young,
Oh, it's way better.
right?
Like analytically, this defense core is way better than what. But that's the thing. Like Owen Power is a big question mark. Can Owen Power be a lot better than some of the other defensemen? And Owen Power has been looking really, really good this past preseason. He's been putting up some amazing numbers. So you could see Owen Power take storm. But it is just preseason, so anything could change once we step into the actual regular season, where the NHL players are actually starting to try.
Right. I think, I mean, going by what I saw from Owen Power last year, I think he's top four, no problems at
Mm-hmm.
19 years old, which is
That
incredible.
is.
It's an absolute incredible feat for a guy to be that young and look as good. Like you said, I don't care about preseason, doesn't tell me all that much, but Matthias Samuelson is probably the most underrated, uh, maybe the most underrated defenseman in the league right now. And Rasmus Dahlin's going to be 23. He took a huge step last year. I don't see that stopping. I mean, I think this team is going to be this could be a real surprise team in the Atlanta or in this division this year. I would not be surprised. It depends totally, and you and I, depends totally on if the Eric Comrie ex, uh, experiment, I guess you would call it, works out.
Hmm.
Because if it doesn't, then yeah, I agree. Then somewhere down there. But I'm going to stay fifth.
Fifth for the Buffalo Sabres. So you got Buffalo at fifth and Boston at sixth. So that
Yeah.
is I mean, that's the thing. Like you could I think the Atlantic is gonna be one of those divisions that you do see a lot of moving around in. I think everyone's gonna be super
Yeah.
tight this upcoming season and they're not gonna be very close. Like how we seen last year where Boston was at 107 and the next closest team was 75. I don't think we're gonna see that this upcoming season. I think every team is just gonna be so far away from each other and so far distance. It's just going to be a really interesting division, I think, to watch because every team could be competitive and in the playoffs. Like you could have arguments for Ottawa being in the playoffs. You could have arguments for Detroit, even Buffalo. If you see a lot of those younger players start to pop off, they're just a whole big question mark because we don't know how a lot of those younger players will be able to produce this upcoming season. So I think it's just honestly a very, very exciting division to watch this upcoming season, which we'll talk about another really exciting team, which I am very pumped up to watch this team this upcoming regular season, is the Detroit Red Wings. For the first time in a while, they're not going to look abysmal, as this year they got Lucas Raymond, who had an amazing season last year, coming into his second full season. Not that just that, they picked up Andrew Kopp, David Perron, Dominic Kubalik, Ben Sherratt, me and Pearlo don't like him very much. Ollie Mata, Billy Huso, which is still a very big question mark if he's going to be ready to take that big starting position. But honestly, I feel like the Detroit Red Wings are making it to the playoffs this year. I have them at fourth, and I have a firm belief that this team is going to do really good. I love their offensive core. Their defense is still very much of a concern, but when you got Mort Snyder back there, and maybe even Simon Edvinsson, who might be making a jump into the main roster this year as well, and I mean, he's not looking terrible either. Jordan Ushrol, if Evanson's not ready, but I think the defense is fine enough if Huso can play really well, and Huso played in a pretty bad defensive core with the same. Sorry guys, we're back. My recording cut off there, but I was saying that I really like what the Detroit Red Wings look like. I think they're going to do really good, and I have them placed at fourth.
This is a coin flip with me. I could see Buffalo or Detroit. I go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth here between the two of them. Um, I'm it. I'm not as I'm as maybe I'm not really all that sold on Huso either. I mean, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, but if he had moments last year where
Yeah.
he looked really really good and he pressed Bennington out of the pitcher for a while and stuff like that. If he can be like that, then I like Detroit. Right? It really comes down to the goaltending for both of them. But yeah, their offense with Bertuzzi, I think Larkin's going to have a monster. Raymond, I mean, 57 points as a 20-year-old. That was spectacular. Full season Verana.
And the
Um, Andrew Kopp, that'll be
And the big
interesting to
thing
see.
is, too,
But
regular season is a lot about points. If you have a great offensive team, we've seen it with a lot of teams in the Western Conference and just teams even in the Eastern Conference. If you have a lethal offense, and even if you have a mediocre
mm,
defensive core, you can make it into the playoffs. Now, how far you go in the playoffs is the question, but you can
yeah,
definitely make it pretty far in the regular season with a very, very good offensive core. And with Mort Snyder having a second year and Raymond, I think both of them are just going to have absolute, like, stud years.
yeah. The other thing is, you gotta. I think I trust Eiserman in his pick. Was it Lalonde as their
Yes,
coach?
yeah.
um, from Tampa Bay. Like I think I trust him in that regard. So because one of the reasons why I have Buffalo up there is I just think Renato is an amazing
Mm-hmm.
coach, right? And if he's like in that category, then I do, yeah, like I said, I do like Detroit a lot here, and they still got Fabry to come back in,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like he can fit into that top nine. So it's going to be an exciting team to watch for sure. And in that division where offense is probably going to be what takes the day for regular season, I could definitely see them doing some serious damage this year.
Yeah,
No
well,
doubt about
without
it.
a doubt. And where do you have him placed? Because you got what is it?
I got I got him
Fourth.
with you fourth, but like I said, it's a coin flip. I pretty much flipped a coin. I think Buffalo, Detroit are
I think
coin
so
flip.
too. That's the thing. Like you could almost see any of those teams take that top of that division mark. That's why I think this is the most. And same with the Pacific Division. It's hard to predict these divisions because you could just see so many potentials out of every team. Like you just really don't know where they're going to place. So we're going to move
Mm.
into the Florida Panthers, who I'm very excited for this team, but also very concerned about this team at the exact same time. I love their offensive core with the pickup of Kachuk, another season out of Lundell. He's going to look insane. There's a lot of great things to look at this team, but then you look at the defensive core with only really Forsling, Ekblad, and Gudas, and the rest of the defensive core does not look very exciting. And the fact that you're now going to have to really rely on Bobrovsky and Spencer Knight this upcoming season big time, I think there's some big concern with that. Especially with Mark Stahl playing in your top four. I definitely don't think that's going to be, very beautiful. It's definitely not going to work out very well for them. And they also got a new head coach in Paul Maurice. I still think the Florida Panthers will still do very well. It's a guaranteed playoff team this upcoming season. Now, I don't see him in first this upcoming season. I do see him either placing in second or third. For me, I had him place at second just because, like we were talking about, offense really wins games. And I think Florida is still going to place very, very high in the division, especially with how crazy offensively talented that offensive core is with Kachuk. You got Bennett, Verhage, Barkov, just so many great offensive players there. So I have the Panthers at second.
Yeah, I think they'll work on they have time to work on the defense
Oh yeah.
throughout the year. But I mean, when I like let me bring it while I was talking, I should have been I've been getting lazy here. I should, but I love what they have done. If I can find Florida here with the offense in the way they're playing Lundell on the
Yeah, he's
wing.
playing on the right wing with Barkov and Verhage, and then you got Reinhardt, Bennett, and Kachuk.
Wow, like that. If Lundell can play as well on the wing as he does up the middle with Barkov and Verhage, that line is going to be freaking cray cray. I love that line. And Reinhardt, I prefer him up the middle. Sam Bennett is stubborn as hell. He won't play on the wing.
Mm-hmm.
But I would like for Sam Reinhart to play in the middle on this. But the goals that are going to go with Bennett, Reinhart, and
Oh
Kachuk,
Jesus.
I mean, all of them can shoot, man. They are freaking, that line is going to score a crap ton of goals. And Matthew Kachuk brings that great two-way game. Reinhardt's got a great two-way game. Both of those lines can
Oh
shut
yeah.
down
Oh yeah.
anyone, right? So the defense probably, and I think this is what the theory is, their defense really doesn't have to work as hard as it would normally, like especially in the regular season when you got that top six. So they can work on adding guys throughout the year. Rudolph Balzers is, I don't know why the heck people didn't give him more money. How did they get him at 750,000? I have no idea. But with Lusterinen and Cousins, there's nothing wrong with
No,
that.
and Rudolph Balcers is
Um,
showing some really good, I think, analytics as well that really could take the cake. Like their depth is very underrated. I think Cousins is great. Colin White, I think, can have a great bounce back season. I mean, Patrick Hornquist is Patrick Hornquist. He's kind of fallen off, but there's just a lot of
yeah,
good low key players that they got to really good contracts that can have like really, really good seasons. Like Balcer's expected offense and expected defense is crazy. I think once he gets those
yeah.
finishing numbers up there, you could even see him produce a lot more offense this upcoming season as well. And I think he definitely will here with the Florida Panthers this year.
It was the best value pickup of the year, I think. I couldn't believe it when like, what are you doing? You got to fire your agent, dude. Are you kidding me? 750,000? Unbelievable. So they did, yeah, I just think their top four, the Lomberg, White, and Horquist is
Oh
pretty
yeah.
solid fourth. Nothing wrong with that at all. So, yeah, their defense, of course, like you mentioned, you don't want Mark Stahl there. They got to do something about that. But I think they can figure that out over the year, and that offense will definitely put them. I'm going second too because I also think Paul Maurice is an experienced coach and knows that you really got to pace yourself throughout the regular season, not like they did last year, where first President's Cup trophy and all that stuff, trying to build a fan base, but I think
I think this
that'll
year,
happen here more. Maybe even third,
I
but
think they take like the
it's
Tampa
possible.
Bay type of approach. They know they're gonna make it to the playoffs, so just kind of casually just lay back. You got a defensive core that's not amazing.
Yeah.
If you just win a couple games by scoring some goals, you'll be just fine.
Yeah, they're going to be a team like Tampa Bay that if they're going into a place like Arizona or something like that, it's not a bad idea to take Arizona in that spot because they're not going
No,
to
yeah.
care. They're just going to play. They just don't want to get hurt and get the heck out of here.
So
So
the next team we're gonna be talking about the Montreal Canadiens and talk about their team. So of course they drafted Slavkovsky, which it looks like Slavkovsky most likely won't make the roster, and I think he shouldn't make the roster this upcoming season. He's been okay during preseason, but definitely not as hot as what some expected him to be. I think with the Montreal Canadiens, I mean, there's not much to talk about. The young team, they appointed Nick Suzuki as their captain. Caulfield will probably have a really good season, but otherwise, I think this team is a bottom feeder team. They're placed in last place in the Eastern or in the Atlantic Division. Probably even the Eastern Conference. They're going to finish dead last. I think maybe Philadelphia will compete with them, but I just don't believe the Montreal Canadiens are going to have a very good season. Their team is just not looking too great. They got a decent offensive core. They got some decent guys there, but I just don't believe the Montreal Canadiens are going to have a very good season this year, like last year.
yeah, I don't think so either. I mean, it's just I think they'll be better and more
Mm-hmm.
competitive, no doubt about it. But the division's just gotten better, and they don't have. I mean, Corey Schooneman,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
really?
And Chris Weidman.
Chris Weidman, is that your top four? With Jake Allen as your number one and Samuel
Montembeau,
Montembeau.
they think that Canadians
Uh,
fans thinking that that's their future Vezina Trophy winner, from what I was seeing.
okay,
Oh,
well, those are some good
yeah,
Homer
right.
fans. Nice to have them because you always pay for tickets. Those guys. Those guys are the best. But no, I don't. Kirby Doc. What do they got him
I
playing on the
don't know
fourth
why
line?
they got it. Maybe Kirby Doc will move up the lineup, but man, Kirby Doc has
I
load
don't
of
think so.
talent. Like he should be taking over Monahan's spot for the second line.
Oh
Maybe
yeah,
they will. I mean,
for
half of
sure.
those guys are injury riddled.
Um,
I bet you not. Like this lineup that we see right now is not what we're gonna see 2 3 months down the road. Like, is Duran really going to stay
yeah,
healthy? Is Monahan really going to stay healthy? Is half of these guys in the
yeah.
lineup actually going to stay healthy, or are they just going to fake injuries and just not want to play majority of
Jonathan,
the season?
yeah,
Right?
Jonathan
Like,
Drouin's gonna have to go to an institution or something again. So, yeah, for sure. There's no this is just a recipe for disaster lineup, and but that's fine. They need to get that
yeah,
top pick,
oh
right?
yeah, get Connor Bedard, baby. Or Adam Fantelli or Mateo Michkov or any of those guys. Definitely Bedard. I think they should definitely be focusing on Michkov or
If they
Fantelli. They
could.
need another future centerman to really take that core to the next step. So we'll move on to three exciting teams. We got the Sens, Lightning, and Toronto left to take us home. So we'll start
Mhm.
off with the Sens here. The Sens, I'm really excited about this team. I have a lot of hope on this team this upcoming season. There's a lot of players I like from the roster, whether you're talking about the first line with Kachuk, Norris, and Batherson, or you're talking about DeBrincat and Giroux with Stutzla. Apparently, DeBrincat, there's rumors about him signing a contract extension with this team. So if they're able to keep this top six together, whoo! That's going to be sick. And then not even just that, you got
Goals.
Matthew Joseph and Shane Pinto down below. You still got a great defensive core who Jake Sanderson might be looking like he'll jump in on the main roster this year. I think there's a lot to like about the Sens. Now, do I think they're going to be a playoff team? No, I don't think they're going to be a playoff team this year. You could totally see them be a playoff team, but I'm going to be placing them in the sixth, right behind the Boston Bruins. I like their team, but I really don't see them being in a playoff spot,
No, I don't either.
especially with
I think they're
Talbot
going to
out for the
score.
first few weeks of the season too. It's going to be Forsberg and
Yeah,
Magnus Hellberg to start off the season.
yeah. I think I had Boston 6-5-4. Where am I going? I got to put him seventh, and I although I'm putting them seventh, like I wouldn't get too excited about it because I think it's going to be so tight that you can mix and match
Yeah,
any one of these. Like really, there's not much difference. But when you still have Zaitsev, Brandstrom hasn't really hit it out of the park. Travis Hamonick's in your top four. Jake Sanderson's just a kid. I love to
Hmm.
watch him play, but how many times does a 20-year-old come in and really make that
Not
much of an
much.
impact that you're going to? And then, of course, Anton Forsberg really looked good a lot last year, and I do like him, and I think he could be, one of those guys that are late bloomer number one guys. I think he has the tools to do that. But if he goes down, I'm not even a huge Talbot guy, and then you got Magnus Hellberg. So I think there's just a lot of things that can go wrong. I don't think they're prepared for injuries as well as other teams in the league are for
No, you
depth
get
and stuff
injured,
like
you got
that.
like
So
Austin Watson and Dylan Gambrell as some of your depth guys. Like if you lose somebody, it's just going to be
yeah,
grit guys that are going to be taking spots for the offensive guys. So it's definitely not great depth for the Sens.
right. I think they're going to have their 5-3 wins on occasion. They're going to light up the scoreboard quite a bit. But if they go up against a team like Carolina that can shut you down,
Oh
they're
yeah,
done. I really don't
I
think
totally
that.
agree.
They're building a really cool team, and I'm excited to see how they're doing. And I think in the long run, this team's going to be great. They've got a lot of young players still to come up in the lineup that are not too far from being ready. So it's looking like another year or two, and this team could be doing some serious
Yeah,
damage
I
for
totally
sure.
agree. I think the Ottawa Senators, and that was even the same with me, just because we're placing them down low in the standings. It's just a testament to how strong this Atlantic division is this year. Like every team you could talk about being so lethal. Like the Red Wings are just, I would have to say, and the Buffalo Sabres are just a little bit better than the Ottawa Senators, just because. I mean, the Buffalo Sabres, I see them being a little bit weaker than the Sens. That's just because like their offensive core is still a lot of big question marks. And I see the Sens offensive core being a lot better, but Buffalo's defense core is just lethal. They're great. They got Samuelson and Darlene, like we were talking about. There's just a lot of upside to talk about every single one of these teams. That's why like it's almost a flip of a coin with whoever goes
Yeah.
in which place for this division. So we'll jump into the two easy teams to kind of rank. We all know these two teams are going to definitely be in the playoffs, and we'll talk about the Tampa Bay Lightning here. Who I gotta say, there's some exciting pieces that they picked up. Nemastankinov, who had a pretty good season last year for the Red Wings. Brennan Hagel, who might have a big season this year. Ross Colton as well. Their defensive core, you're going to see Cal Foote take a big leap in the minutes as well. So there's still a lot of big questions, but honestly, we all know Tampa Bay Lightning is going to make it to the playoffs. This team is going to be, for me, they're third in the division. I think they're going to have a really good season. I'm really excited to see what Ross Colton will do this upcoming season. Really, really excited. I almost really wanted to pick him on my fantasy team. I unfortunately did it. Most likely tonight when I do my fantasy team for my league, for my YouTube channel, hopefully I do get the guy because I think Ross Colton is just an insane player, and I think he's really going to have a big season for the Tampa Bay Lightning. So I have him placed at third.
This is the one year I think they could grab the presidents because it's not so like they're not going to be able to
Mm-hmm.
relax as much as they were before. They don't really they missed a lot of pieces. I could see them coming now if they come out hot and they win like lots of games right away. Then they'll probably go
Yeah.
back to where they were. But I don't think that's going to be the case with Tampa Bay. I think they're going to have to fight for wins a lot more this year, and because they don't have what they normally have. So I think they could win the Presidents this year. Um, but that being said, like this division is so difficult. Uh, Cole Kopker, who the
Yeah, he
heck is
was
that?
the university guy. Played for Syracuse last year for the AHL team, and
Looks like he's
yeah,
making the roster. Yeah, amazing. Um, so I think I'm you know what I'm going to go against you here. I think they're going to win this
okay.
division. I think they're going to win this division simply because I just think that they're going to be trying throughout the year a little harder than they did
Mm-hmm.
before. And I think this division is so close that they're not going to have the feeling that they can just hold back in this division this year. So I'm going to put them first.
So
I'm
for
going to put them
me,
first.
my top of the division and the next team we're going to be talking about is the Toronto Maple Leafs. I have a
Yeah.
lot of belief in this team this upcoming season, and usually I'm not keen to saying that because honestly, the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I don't think they're going to win in the first round this upcoming season. I will say that till the day they win a first round series. I will never say that they'll win first round because every time I've said that, they lose in the first round. So I'm just gonna not hold my breath that they're gonna win in the first round. But we'll talk about the regular season, and I think this team's gonna do really good. They got a great defensive core this upcoming season. The only defenseman I don't like out of that core is Hall. They can easily move him, especially with Sandin and Liljegren now. I think Hall is like easily expendable. You don't need the guy when you got Liljegren and Sandin jumping up in the roster. Giordano signed for dirt cheap. The defensive core is really, really good, and I think with Matt Murray and Samsonov, those are the two biggest questions. But with having a really good defense core, I think that might help a little bit. Plus, they improved their offensive defense as well with the pickups of Zach Ashton Reese, Ub Kubel, who is a really good pickup, Kayla Yankaruk as well. I think there's a lot to like about the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I really do have that feeling like Matthews is going to have another big season, same with Marner. So I'm going to place him at the top of the Atlantic Division.
For me, it's all about Matt Murray,
Yeah.
right? If Matt Murray if Dubas, and I give Dubas a lot of respect. Like a lot of people, I don't know. He had a good plan. COVID hit, didn't work out. I still didn't really. I have to say, I didn't like the Tavares move when they did pick up Tavares, but apparently he's helped Austin Matthews a lot, and everything that they wanted to do is what happened, whatever the case may be. When Tavares comes back, if Murray has a great year, this is the thing. I'm saying that if Murray comes out of the gate hot, like kind of did at the end of last year with Ottawa, and they got something here, this is a team that I think can come and just win like crazy the first half. And this is the team that I think will take it easy down the stretch, right? So because they don't want to be burnt out. If any team knows how, now that should have figure out the mix on how to get past the first round, not being burnt out, pacing yourself, all that kind of stuff like that, that should come together this year. In which case, I could see them losing a couple games down the stretch because they're so far ahead and, letting guys rest and all that kind of stuff like that. That's the reason why I kind of have them either second or third. And ask me 20 games in how Murray looks like. If Murray looks like his old self in Pittsburgh, I say Toronto makes it past the first round. I will say Toronto makes it past the first round this year.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Matt Murray is the biggest question. We're definitely going to be discussing a lot about Matt Murray and the goaltending core as the season goes along for the Leafs, because I think it's definitely something to definitely be talked about. So there we are. The Atlantic Division is done for us as Pearlo, you had Tampa Bay at first, Florida at second, Toronto at third. Fourth would be, what was your fourth place team? I think that was Buffalo.
Detroit. Oh, no, Detroit.
Detroit. Then you had Buffalo, then Boston, then Ottawa, then Montreal. For me, I had Toronto as my first team, Florida, Tampa Bay, Detroit, Boston, Ottawa, then Buffalo, and Montreal at last. So we'll move on to the last and final division. We'll move through a few of these teams a little bit faster this time around. But, I mean, we're not going to move fast past this team, Pearlo. We're going to be talking about the Carolina Hurricanes, who I love this team, man. This is one of my favorite teams out of the Atlantic Division, or out of the Metro, I meant. And it's not just because they eat the bear, ladies and gentlemen, a little bit, but they just got a lot of great players part of this team. You got Seth Jarvis, Jesperi Kotkaniemi, who will definitely be a breakout player this year. You got a great defensive core with Burns being added, who adds another offensive guy to the core alongside Slavin. This team just has a lot of hype. And then also, not just that, they picked up Stastny this upcoming season to play alongside Stalin Fast. You got Patch Reddy, who's injured right now, but, like, I don't think it matters, man. Like, I know someone was, like, commenting on one of my old videos when I reviewed the team, and they're like, oh, Patch Reddy's now injured. That throws the plan out the window. No, it does not. When you have Jarvis and Natchez up the wings and Teuvo Teravainen and Svechnikov, you really don't have to worry about Patch Reddy being injured. You already have a really well-built team. With Patch Reddy being added later on in the season, that'll just add more depth going into the playoffs for the Hurricanes. So I'm really, really excited about this team. They got a lot of good things going, and I think this team takes the top of the Metro this year easily.
Me too. It's simple as that. This team can. This team's mechanically is the possibly the best in the league, besides maybe Colorado. But I mean, their team game and their possession and uh, they play like a well-oiled machine. And Pacioretty not being there doesn't change that. Jarvis is only 20 years old and had 40 points in 68 games. Nietzsche's had a bit of a down year, but I expect him to bounce back. And then, of course, Brent Burns never seems to get old. That was a beautiful move. Frederick Anderson, if they can stay healthy, that's the only big issue
Yeah,
I
is
would
their
really see
goaltending.
is if they have goaltending issues. But besides that, I got him number one without even a thought.
Yeah, I think they're going to have a really good season. And we'll jump right on to the Columbus Blue Jackets, who made a massive move, a huge, big blockbuster in free agency, where they picked up Johnny Gaudreau in free agency, the biggest piece, and locked him up for the next 7 years. They also locked up Line A, who their top, few offensive lines are looking really good. You got Cole Sillinger and Ken Johnson coming up the pipeline as well. Their defense core is looking okay, but I still don't think that this team is going to be a big playoff team this year. I do see them being better than the Islanders this year. I do see them, of course, being better than the Flyers. For me, I think I'm going to have the Blue Jackets at 6 this upcoming season. There's a lot to like about this team, but it's still a very young team. So I think with that fact, I'm going to place them at 6th. You could see him place a little bit higher. Just everyone above the Blue Jackets are pretty good teams above the Blue Jackets.
Yeah, they could surprise. Are they ahead of the Islanders? They're both. I think it's about the
Yeah.
same. I think sixth is a fair spot. They're going to be more
Oh, yeah.
exciting to watch than the
Without a doubt,
Islanders,
easily.
and there's
Anyone's more exciting
there's
than
a
them.
yeah, there's a lot to look forward to in that organization. But I don't think that Columbus and it's just the East has gotten so much better all
Yeah.
around. There's not going to be some easy games out there, too many easy games out there. And I think the depth overall will eventually just break down, sort of like what Anaheim did last year. I could see Columbus coming out
Yeah.
hot and beating teams, and then just by the second half, just start to fall. They're really young,
I think so too. I
and
think there's still lots of moves to be made, and I mean that's the thing. Like it's not a bad season for the Blue Jackets, or yeah, for the Blue Jackets to lose because they could still dump off Nyquist. Maybe they could half retain Verchek or something like that to get him off to another team. Like I think the Blue Jackets this year to be kind of a tweener team is a good year with how deep this draft is. So even if they do lose a bulk of the games near the end of the season, they'll still get a really really good draft pick. So. I think it's not a bad season, and I think they'll start trying a little bit more going into the next year. But I think with the Blue Jackets being at 6, I think it's a perfect spot for them. So we'll
Mhm.
move on to the next team, which I have a lot of hope for this team. The guy that I'm not really a big fan of is Lindy Ruff, their head coach. I don't know what the hell he's trying to do, and he was talking about trying to change Simon Nemec's game totally, which I don't know. Like he was talking about how he wants Nemec to play more of a defensive game than what he usually does in his transition offensive game. But that's Lindy Ruff for you. Lindy Ruff has always been kind of he's a good coach, not dissing on Lindy Ruff. He did great back in the Buffalo Sabres days, but sometimes he's not always great with the younger guys. But I have a lot of hope on the Buffalo Sabres. I like a lot of what the Buffalo Sabres did. Their defense core is looking amazing this upcoming season with the addition of John Marino. Vitek Vanacek, I think, will do all right. I think Mackenzie Blackwood needs to have a big bounce back season this year as well. Their offensive core is looking great with the addition of Andre Palat. I think Jack Hughes is going to have another massive season, especially with probably most likely, hopefully, a healthy full season for Hughes as well. I think their offensive core looks really good, and quite honestly, I think this team takes a playoff spot in fourth. I really do believe that the Devils are going to have a really good season. This has been a team where we always thought they were going to do good and then not do good, but I think this is the type of year where the Devils are going to have a really good season and they're going to make it into the playoffs, but I don't see them going very far in the playoffs.
Could be. I think you brought up something, and I've been a supporter of Ruff when he first came in there, but honestly, I think he gets
I
fired.
think so too. Honestly, that's the thing too. Like you could see the Buffalo Sabres, the Devils have a rough start to the season, and then they fire Ruff because I just don't think Ruff fits good with the younger guys. I just don't think Ruff is a younger guy type of coach. He's always been more leaning on the veterans a lot more than what he does with the younger guys. But I mean, we have been seeing that transition a little bit differently here with the Devils, with him playing Jack Hughes a decent bulk. But you look at what Mercer only played 16 minutes per game, and he was pretty offensively talented. Same with Igor Sharangovich. He played more of his depth guys a decent amount of minutes than some of his top line guys. So maybe we'll see a little bit of a shift this year with Ruff. But I think the Devils will make it to the playoffs this year.
Can I put them there? Yeah, I'll put them there
Put him
too.
at fourth.
I'll put them just barely making it in. Yeah.
I have a team
put
that's
him
right
there.
underneath of them that we'll get into at last, but I think the Devils, they have that type of team. If Vitek Vanecek can kind of pull things together, I think he could have like a really, really good season this year. So we'll
Yeah.
move on to the next one is the New York Islanders, which the New York Islanders, I'm not a big fan of this team either. We'll kind of go over this team quickly. They've had the same roster since, a few years now. They've had the exact same type of core. They changed up the defensive core a little bit this year with the addition of Romanov, but they didn't do anything. They didn't do anything to add. They didn't change anything. They didn't, make any moves. I think this team is not going to have a good season. I know Lane Lambert, a lot of people are hyping him up, but I don't think with the fact that everyone else is growing in this division and the Islanders are staying stagnant with the exact same team, people are going to start figuring them out, and people are going to start figuring out the way that they play. And I just don't believe the Islanders are going to do very good this year. I have them placed down at 7th. I really am not a big hopeful on this team this upcoming year. I think Sorokin will do great, but for the rest of the team, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I've been saying that for a long time. For 2 years in a row, I said if Barry Trotz gets the Islanders in the playoffs, he should get Coach of the Year, and they make it to the semifinals, which is absolutely unbelievable when you look at this lineup. Now you've got, Parise's 39 years
Yeah.
old. Palmieri's going to be 32, and he's already looking old. And the biggest problem, the reason why I said this is they always falter in the last 2-3 weeks of the season and barely
Yeah.
make it. And I don't know. Okay, Lane Lambert, he could be amazing. He could be. In which case, then maybe they could do it. I don't know enough about him to really say, but I do know that I don't think Palmieri and Parise is going to hold up. Josh Bailey is now 34, and their replacement players are
Yeah.
bunk, like seriously bad. They have bad, like Atu Koivula, like they have nobody to replace these players, and they end up playing the crap out of them, and then they die
Yeah.
at the end. And that game only lasts so long, and I think it's over. It had nothing to do with Trotz. It had to do with the fact that the team's too old, and I'm with you. Honestly, I wouldn't even be surprised if Philadelphia was better than them this year.
I think the
I
biggest
think
thing
they're
is
that bad.
Sorokin this year. I think Sorokin will kind of keep him a little bit afloat this upcoming season, just with how insane I think Sorokin will play. But
And they got
yeah,
a
and they
good
got a
top four.
decent top
They get-
four. Like their defense is pretty good. I think they'll definitely be a lot better than the Flyers. But like you could totally see if they get some injuries down to that core, like you could definitely see them swoop down to the level
Yeah.
that the Flyers are at.
Or
Oh, if
Sorokin goes
Sorokin
out.
goes out, then they're screwed. And they are screwed. So we'll move
Yeah.
on to the other New York team in the Rangers, which honestly, I do see this team taking a little bit of a step back this upcoming regular season. With the fact that I think there was a lot of players that definitely produced a lot this upcoming season. I still see some other guys have big seasons. Like I think Alexis Lafreniere will have a big season this year. I think he'll definitely be one of those type of breakout players here for the Rangers. Shesterkin's still going to be insane. I think their defensive core is going to take another leap up. But I think this team is going to place in third in the Metro. Just because, I don't believe Kreider's going to have another big season. I think Spinjad will be okay. Panarin has been all right 5-on-5, but is Vincent Trocheck really going to be that big of an addition to help this team take, that next big step? I don't think so. I think they're going to be placed down in third this upcoming year.
I think they're going to be second, and I don't think that's a good thing. I think they're going to be second because Gallant is going to have these guys playing as hard
Yeah.
as they can every single game. Like they're not going to they're not going to coast into the playoffs. Like they're going to be burnt out come playoff time because they're going to be constantly trying to figure out why their 5-on-5 doesn't work. And Chris Drury apparently has no analytics group
No.
in his in his staffing at all, and they're just going to say, I don't know, we got the guys, they should be able to do it. You ever hear these guys, these general managers that don't have an analytics crew, and they just sit there like, well, it's a guy's fault.
Mm-hmm.
We got them in there, they're good, they should do it. That's what they say all the time. Remember the Edmonton Oilers used to say
Yep.
that all the time? And that's what's going to happen. And they're all going to try really hard, and they're going to beat people up, and they're going to score on the power play. Shesterkin's going to get outshot constantly all the time, and they're going to end up being second and then losing the first round and wonder
Mm-hmm.
why. That's what I think is going to happen with the Rangers. While we're probably going to talk about another team. The next team, we'll talk about that. But I think they take second. Everybody thinks they're great, and then they suck them in
Yeah,
the playoffs.
well, the next team we're going to be talking about is the Philadelphia Flyers, and but that's before Pittsburgh. I know we were going to be talking about Pittsburgh, but Philadelphia, we'll quickly go over them. We all know what's going to happen to them. They're bottom last. Sean Couturier out for the rest of the season. They got Morgan Frost as their second line center. I think that's easy enough to talk about. Not really talking about this team, and I think most fans know that this team is bottom feeders this upcoming season, like without a doubt.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to be talking about it with Steele from Steel Flyers tonight and his crew there at Hockey Rangers
Oh,
Inc. And yeah, so that'll be pretty cool. We'll be talking some Philadelphia Flyers. But I actually think that Chuck Fletcher did something that people don't understand. I think this was a tank but he wasn't allowed to say it. Like his goal was to tank without looking like he was tanking.
so that's why you pick up
How do you
Tony
do
D
that?
and then
Ellis, because he's going to be injured and they know it, so they can use that as excuse, and they can put him in. They can use him later to a team that needs cap space to get picks and
yeah.
stuff like that. But what they're going to sell their sponsors and stuff like that is injuries. What do you do, right? Like they're trying to find excuses to tank that they need to tank. And in that way, they're doing a really good job because this team's going to be crap.
Oh my God, it's gonna be bad.
Nick Seeler. Nick Seeler.
It's bad.
What more do you got? Nicholas Delorier at 2.75.
Oh,
Now, why or 1.7? Okay, now I know why they got Nicholas Delorier. They don't really want to be good, but he's like one of those spiritual leader guys in the room. Like he's probably like a really intelligent dude that can help people become the best that they can be, because he certainly did, because he has no business being in the NHL, and he found a way to make an NHL career out of this. So yeah, like that's the team is crap. There's nothing to talk about. They're supposed to lose. They're gonna lose. They're gonna get their top 5 pick or whatever, and that's
and
a
this
good
hopefully
thing.
hopefully Chuck Fletcher picks the right guy.
Tortorella's going to bag the crap out of these guys and show them what it means to actually be an NHL player and the type of conditioning you need to be in and all of that. And they're all going to be bagged all year, just like they were in the preseason. And he's going to build them into warriors, and 3-4 years down the road.
I never know. I think the Flyers might take some steps up. It's just hopefully Chuck Fletcher doesn't continue to screw things up, because we know what he does, and Chuck Fletcher loves screwing things up with teams. He did it with the Wild. He's probably going to do it with the Flyers.
There's no excuse for Rasmus Ristolainen, though. There's no excuse.
No.
For that.
That was atrocious. So we'll move into the last two teams. And that's the Pittsburgh Penguins here. And I have a lot of hope on the Pittsburgh Penguins this year. I think they do really good. And that's why I placed them at second in the Metro here, just because I have a lot of hope on them. I think Tristan Jarry is going to have a pretty good season. I really like their defensive core. I think the defensive core is going to have a good season. I think Malkin and Crosby are just going to have huge seasons this year. You got Getzel. I think Raquel, I've been hearing how good he has really good chemistry alongside of Crosby. I think Raquel has a resurgence season this year for the Pittsburgh Penguins, and he goes off and maybe has 20, 30 goals. I can see Raquel popping back off. So I think there's going to be a lot of great players that you could definitely see have bounce back seasons here for the Pittsburgh Penguins. So I'm really excited to see what they'll be able to do. There's a lot to like, and I have them placed at second above the Rangers this year.
Yeah, I have them at third, and here's a good reason why I have them at third. Is like they're going to play the New York Rangers. Okay, they're going to go into their building. The New York Rangers are going to come out all
Mm-hmm.
Reevesy. You know what I mean? And all ballsy and trying to act like they're the big shots and blah 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 blah. And Pittsburgh is like, we're not going to risk injury against this. You guys want this regular season win? You go have it. Who cares? And move on, right? And that's what Pittsburgh does. They don't get involved in nonsense like bonehead crap like that in the regular season. It means nothing to them. So that's why. So they'll lose a game like that because they know not to get them. They know how to pace themselves into the playoffs. So that's why I think they'll come third. And like I said, they could if they wanted
Mm-hmm.
to they could be first probably if they wanted to, but I just don't. I think also this is a roster that has to protect their veterans because they don't have very good replacement
No.
players either. And unlike the Islanders have to try every hard as they can every game just to win a game. Pittsburgh
Yeah.
doesn't have to do that throughout the so yeah. So that's why I have them third. Not because I think they're less than the Rangers by any stretch. I think they're a better team by
Yeah,
far.
so we'll move into the last and final team of today's podcast, and that is the Washington Capitals, who I will
Yeah.
say I love a lot of their players. I think Dylan Strome, I think he'll have a pretty good season. I think Connor Brown will. But I have this team placed at fifth, right below the Devils. I have them outside of a playoff spot. Just there's a lot of skeptical, parts of this team. I think their offense is going to drop a little bit this year. I just don't believe it. They're going to be doing very well. Plus, you got injuries. Like, is TJ Oshie going to have a fully healthy season? Is he going to continue playing the way that he's been playing the last few years? Is Johansson going to be a big player? Like, how is he going to do down the depth wise? Is Mantha going to stay healthy? Like, there's so much big questions. And then Darcy Kemper. Darcy Kemper was carried by a very good defensive core there for the Colorado Avalanche. He was absolutely
Yep.
atrocious during the playoffs. Like, he had some of the
Yep.
worst goaltending numbers to ever win the cup. He had a 902 save percentage, and he won a cup.
Yep.
And you got for Harvey,
Mhm.
who did not play very well defensively, playing alongside of Carlson. Orlov, who's probably one of their better defensemen, playing alongside of Jensen. And that's it. You got Gustafsson and Van Riemsdyk as your top six. That's not good. You don't want Gustafsson playing in your top six. I remember this bum playing for Calgary or even Chicago, and the guy
Oh
was
yeah.
atrocious defensively. This is a guy that you did not
How does
want.
he keep
I
getting the
don't know,
job?
man. It's his puck moving skills. I think that's the only way
Does
he stays in the NHL. But I think the Washington Capitals, they don't make it to the playoffs this year.
does he get our Keith reach around
I
in the
think he
room award
does.
this year? I think he
Yeah,
is.
we're gonna make that an award, the Keith Reach Around of the Year award. A guy that somehow is on the team.
Yeah, that does like some crazy stuff
I
in
think
the
that's
dressing room. I
Delorier,
don't know,
man. I
but
think that's why he got paid the big money.
that could be Delorier. That could be Delorier too. You can put him up there. Yeah, Ben Reeves like Nick Jensen his ass. I mean, that's the problem here. If they lose Fair Harvey or Carlson or Orloff, but they seem to just get it done. And you're right. I get that feeling. And like with Darcy Kemper, he was so protected in Arizona. Tocchet played like one of the craziest defensive systems
Yeah.
I've ever seen to protect a goaltender in Arizona, and he put up really good numbers because of it. They couldn't score with a darn. Like they literally were like afraid to leave their defensive zone, and somehow still managed to play
Yeah.
a game that allowed him to become. And then, of course, Colorado. We saw already what they did with Grubauer, right? He almost won a freaking no. He almost won a Vesna with their incredible analytically
Mm-hmm.
strong forwards and defense there. And like you said, some of the worst goaltending I've ever seen. Definitely, probably the worst goaltending
Oh
I've
yeah,
ever seen
without a
in a
doubt,
cup.
easily takes the cake.
And right. And how is that going to translate into Washington? I say ass. And that's the reason why I take New Jersey over Washington here is I think they spent a whole lot of money. And imagine that because New Jersey went out and got the goaltender they had and they make the playoffs
I
and
think
they lose the
that'll
playoffs
be
with Kemper.
so historic. That'd be insane. Also, I think the last time we really seen bad goalies play in the playoffs was when the Flyers went all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals and lost to the Blackhawks. They
Oh,
had Boucher
yeah.
and Michael Layton, in the back of the net for the Flyers. They
Yeah,
were atrocious, and somehow the Flyers made it all the way to the cup. It doesn't happen very often. It's very few and far between.
that was the that was the luckiest route to the finals ever. Their overall analytics was absolutely diabolical. The only other time there was analytics that bad that made it to the final was the Buffalo Sabres, and they had Dominic Hasek.
Yeah,
So how the heck did they make the finals? I have no
dude,
idea.
I still to this
It's
day
crazy.
like looking at Michael
Pure
Layton, Ray
shit
Emery,
luck,
Brian
dude.
Boucher, the goaltending numbers. Layton had somehow a 916, and Boucher had a 909. Like I just cannot believe those guys even did good. It's quite surprising. You don't see very many teams make it that deep into the playoffs. So we'll get into the last thing, and that's wild cards. I think really there's going to be no extra wild card out of each division. I think each teams from the fourth place will be making it on. I don't think there's going to be an extra spot in the Metro making it in, or even in the Atlantic. I think both of them will be 4 out of 4 in each division. Do you see any extra?
Possibly. Yeah, I mean,
Maybe the
maybe
Metro.
Washington works ahead or something like
I could
that.
see that, but like I
Uh,
maybe I still see the Red Wings doing a
maybe,
little bit better. But maybe I could be wrong.
yeah, I mean, I guess the one thing is possibly Columbus, I think, could surprise a lot because this division is kind of it's weaker than the Atlantic, right?
Yeah.
So because everybody's fighting so hard in the Atlantic, their overall point totals at the end of the year are going to be lower. And a team like Columbus or something like that that have an easier time over here grabbing points might beat one of those teams out
Yeah.
and end up and actually not be a better team, but just have an easier way to the to get there than them. That would be it. I could see possibly something like that happening now.
Well, there we are, ladies and gentlemen. That is our Eastern Conference preview. As the NHL, the day of this recording will be starting up tomorrow. You guys will be watching this podcast after the very first game of the regular season between the Sharks and the Preds. I hope you guys enjoyed the game, and I hope you guys enjoyed the another episode of the Payton on the Radio podcast. We're going to be having another episode come out on I'm going to be recording the Wednesday episode before I go off to Edmonton and watch the Edmonton Oilers versus the Flames game, which I'm very pumped about. So another episode will be coming out next Thursday. Make sure to stay tuned in for that. Thank you very much, Pearlo. Is there any links we should go check out, my man? Yeah,
BPalPicks.com,
go
man.
check it out. We got some killer deals.
Check it out. Make sure you say Payton or Payton on the radio when you go check it out. You got the link in there.
Yep.
Put the link in the video here. Hit it, guys. If you by now it'll be $150 a month. You will make significant amount of money, and the frolic will be eternal. You'll love it. It's so much fun. Hit it up. Go check it out. If you like betting and making money while you're betting, not just gambling, I think you'll like it.
I would definitely check it out. I'm definitely going to be part of it a little bit this year. I'm definitely going to be making some big bets, so make sure to go check it out. BPal Picks will be down in the link in the description below. Make sure to also go check out his YouTube channel, his Twitter. All that will be in the link in the description below. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure to hit that like button and hit that subscribe button as well. And whenever I post this up on Spotify or iTunes, make sure to give it a 5-star rating and give us a great review. And maybe we'll even potentially read it on one of these great episodes. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and I will see you guys all in the next one. Adios, amigos.